So thank you, Roshan. I'm honored to be invited by Dr. Roshan Manandar to give this presentation today, and he also let me help co-organize this webinar. So thank you. And my name is Jia-Wei. I'm an urban entomologist, and as Roshan said, I'm from Sitar PAPS, UH, and I've been with the department for about 6 years and 2 months. So not really 7 years yet. So, but thank you, Roshan. So I'm presenting on ants. And before I moved to the US, I came from Malaysia, which is a very tropical country in Southeast Asia. And as you can see on the title slide, my presentation title is Invasive Ant Biology and Smarter Management. And all of these photos that you see on this slide, they are all ants. For example, on the here right bottom, it is a huge pile of fire ants floating on the water during flood. And if you see something like that, you don't want to touch it. And all of these are interesting ant species. It also reflects that ant species is highly diverse. And over here in this photo, you can see a largest ant species together with the smallest ant species in the world together. And among urban insects, ants are really challenging to identify their species correctly because they are so diverse. Let's dive into it. There are some species that can form supercolony, so ants are challenging to control because of this behavior and ecology. For example, uh, if you can see, there's Portugal, Spain, France, Italy, but all of these ants colony, they are super colony. They have unicoloniality, they don't fight, and they don't have aggression between each other. So these are all network of ant nests, very widespread geographically, but the thing is all ants in this giant network have close unicoloniality where they don't have aggression with each other. And ants also have polydomy, that means multiple nests, and polygyny, that means multiple queens. Ants have some interesting behavior other than unicoloniality. When you see two ants encounter each other, right, they will touch each other's antennae briefly. So it is their way of identifying if they are nestmates or non-nestmates. An intruder will be killed for sure, very quickly. And the ants colony, they have so many members, right? Some of them form super colony, there's so many members. So they use chemical signal to communicate with each other. One example is they use pheromone to avoid getting trashed. For example, they want to prevent their nestmate from throwing them away from the nest. So they have chemical signal that say they are alive. So they have a lot of interesting behavior, and because of their impressive ants behavior in this, so this video is showing my lab. Because of their interesting social life, we use a video tracking software to track ant movement and their path in real time, which I will show you later in this video. So we put them on a heat map as well. As you can see here, we can see where they hang out more in the petri dish with different treatment. So I can go back to the heat map. So over here, you can see the heat map where there's blue, there's red. So red represent the ants hang out there for the most time, more duration. And here is another function where we can use the video tracking software to track each ant's movement with different colors. So here you can see they are moving everywhere and we can track their movement in real time, which is pretty cool. And so we do it by using the microscope connected to the computer and the software. So now I'm gonna be talking about a few very interesting ants around the world which are not found in Hawaii or the US, just for your information. And then I will talk about some common ants found in Hawaii. So now it is those species not found in Hawaii first. So the first interesting ants is called Dracula ants. So they exist. They drink hemoglobin from their larvae, which is like the blood of the larvae. But don't worry, they are not actually killing the larvae. So they are ancient lineage of predatory ants where the adult drink the fluid circulating the inside body uh, from their larvae. They are endemic to Madagascar and they can be found at some tropical areas in Africa and Asia. And the second interesting ants is it is a whole genus of ants called Polyergus, the slave-making ants. As a whole, ants are known for being hardworking, right? But not these ants. So these are a few bad apples for ants because they enslave other ants to do work for them. Now, next interesting ant species I'm gonna talk about briefly is called honeypot ants. They can store nectar in their super swollen abdomen that like you can see from this photo. So when the food is limited, the the other worker ants will kind of stroke the antenna of these, we call it as replit. They are hanging from their ceiling like a walking jar or living jar. So it is like a walking pantry. So whenever they need a food, other ants will stroke the antenna and then um, these poor ants, right? They basically use their own body as a living jar. And when the liquid is needed, the worker ant drain the liquid to feed the entire colony. And next, I'm gonna show you that fire ants, they can form rafts, and during the flooding event, they won't die, but they will survive.
Getting around during the flood. The busy life of a fire ant colony has to carry on regardless. By linking legs, the worker ants create a living raft, supported by the surface tension of the water.
So in summary, they are being supported by the surface tension and they form a living raft and float across the river, across different area, and then this is how they spread to different regions. And this is one of the way they become invasive and spread to other regions. So next, we also want to learn about IPM because ants they have many fascinating behavior and ecology, right? So we want to know them, we want to understand them, and so that we can figure out a long-term solution. So we ultimately the applied part of this uh, urban entomology study is we want to reduce chemical pest control methods. We want to monitor for the presence of pests before treating. And we can use some non-chemical strategies first, for example, making habitat less attractive and use physical control, like sealing up the holes of and the home, and also repair like leaking pipes at home that attract ants. So learn about the pests, so it can help when you need to control the pests. I saw from the chat that Marilyn asked, don't we have fire ant in Hawaii? So we do have tropical fire ants, Solenopsis geminata, but we do not have the notorious one, the red imported fire ant, Solenopsis invicta, in Hawaii yet. I will also cover more about ant species in Hawaii later part in the this seminar. So first, we need to identify them properly, right? So for ants, you can see whether they have two nodes or one node. So for example, the photo on the right side is the tropical fire ant species that I just talked a little bit about by answering Marilyn's question. So we do have the tropical fire ants and it is two node, and this yellow crazy ant have one node. So the number of nodes is a key characteristic of ants. So it is a good starting point to differentiate ants and I will show you a little bit more. You can narrow them down to subfamily by using the note. For example, one note subfamily has all of these, and two note subfamilies have all of these ants. I would also like to introduce you to a few websites that you may find helpful. I didn't make those websites, so this is just for your information for the sake of showing you. And if you are pest control professionals or agency staff who need to identify ants, so PIA key. So this is a key to the invasive ants of the Pacific. So in short, it is PIA that includes many species found in Hawaii plus others not yet found in Hawaii. So it has most of the species in the Pacific regions. And if you click on the subfamily, so here is a drawing of the notes look like. For example, you found that you have two notes ants, Myrmicinae, and then you click on it, you click on Myrmicinae and expand this subfamily, you can find the ant genus. For example, Monomorium is an ant genus and Cardiocondila is an ant genus. And if each of these, you can click on the plus symbol and will also expand. For example, Monomorium will also expand more to Monomer veronis, Monomorium floricola, and etc. And other than this PIA key, you can also use Hawaii Ant Lab resources. For example, I put in this link. So Hawaii Ant Lab has a resource that help you to identify, it is called Key to Subfamilies of Ants in Hawaii. So there's a step-by-step guideline for you to identify ants up to the species level. I also want to mention that if you see questionable species, if you are pest control professionals and or similar position agency staff, if you see, or even community members, and you can report to these agencies, DOA, the Invasive Species Committee of Hawaii, or 643pest.org. So the ants need to be collected for identification. So anyway, let's keep in mind that ants are very diverse. So globally, there are over 10,000 ant species that has been identified, but only a small group of them are pests. Now I'm gonna proceed to talk about common ants in Hawaii that you may encounter every day over here. So to reiterate, there are more than 10,000 species of ants globally, and then in Hawaii itself, we have over 60 species of ants. So here I'm only listed 12. They are common ant species in Hawaii. First, little fire ants, Wasmannia punctata. They are super tiny. They are very widespread on a big island, and they are already made their way to Oahu as well as Kauai, Maui. They cause nuisance. They sting humans, agriculture workers, landscapers, and pets. They are also commonly found in shipments from Hawaii, causing the plant material shipment rejected by the mainland, for example. And lastly, they also threaten biodiversity. For example, they are a threat to both ground and tree nesting native birds, which some of them are endangered bird species in Hawaii. And the next species is called yellow crazy ant or long-legged ants. So this species, as you can see from this photo, they have long legs, long antennae. They are very quick moving, large species. This ant usually nests outside. And for information on Christmas Island, the yellow crazy ant or this long-legged ant, they have decimated over 1/3 of the entire population of endemic red crabs that can affect the island ecosystem. So they are causing serious ecological impacts there on the Christmas Island. There are some papers that are published on that particular aspect. In agriculture, they also support honeydew producing pests. And They can also direct damaged fruits by their formic acid secretion. So this is Anoplolepis gracilipes. Next species we have here is called Hawaiian carpenter ant. They are actually not originally from Hawaii, but was first discovered and described in Hawaii. They are Hawaii's largest ant species. Although it is mostly found outdoors, they will establish and nest in the wood that has previously been hollowed out by termites. They are considered as wood eater, so we call them as wood eater. And they might do some excavation of wood, but they only bring little damage to wooden structure because they don't consume wood like termites. So termites will cause more serious issue to the wooden structure and furniture. The next species is called pharaoh ant. The workers are small. They are small species. They are yellowish brown to reddish brown in color with a much darker abdomen, like what you see in this photo. Dark abdomen and then brown color for the whole body. So the pharaoh ant is common indoor pest, but may sometimes nest outdoor in tropical regions. The infestation of pharaoh ants normally happen in apartment buildings, in the urban environment, as well as in healthcare facilities. So they will contaminate the sterile equipment and tools in the hospitals. Next species. So in Hawaii, we don't have red imported fire ants, right? Like I mentioned a few minutes ago. But we do have tropical fire ants. It is called Solenopsis geminata, their scientific name. The red imported fire ant is Solenopsis invicta. They are the same genus but different species. So anyway, it is a common and aggressive ant species throughout the lowland Hawaiian islands. They nest in the ground, in dry or moist soil. They are polymorphic. So poly means multiple and morphic means size of worker, meaning their worker occur in multiple size of major and minor workers. So this is the characteristic that you can use to know whether it is a fire ant or not. It packs a painful sting, and so you shouldn't walk barefoot in the park if you see these ants, right? So learn how to identify them. And yeah, so I found that because I have been stung by tropical fire ants and little fire ant before, and I found that tropical fire ant has more painful sting compared to little fire ant. Just my personal thinking. And next, we have glaber ant. They are small species of ants. They are attracted to sweet liquid, and they are often drawn to your kitchen and laundry and bathroom at home. They can be found in the roof, in wall spaces, potted plants, in between flat packed items. For example, they can even be found between papers, between thick piles of papers. Next is crazy ant. It is called Paratrachina longicornis. It is a quick moving ant. So you can identify them by looking at their body and their long legs. They have slender body, long legs, long antennae, black in color. And if you look close enough, the body is covered with long and coarse hairs. So there are many people who told me they have black ants, but I also want to point out that there are many species of black ants, right? So some of them have different food preference, and some of them don't like bait. For example, if you want to ask about a particular ants, you should either take a photo or send a sample to us. Because if you only said about, I have black ants, it is too broad. So anyway, they are capable of moving rapidly and erratically instead of follow a straight line. So that is their major characteristic. In the urban environment, they nest indoors in wall voids and outdoor around the building, around the perimeter of the building. They do not bite or sting, but they spray formic acid when disturbed. The next one is called white-footed ants. So it is also very common here. They move slowly in lines, so it is very different than the crazy ant movement. They are very, very slow and in straight line. So the lower part of the legs are pale yellow in color. So that is the main tips that you can use to identify whether you have white-footed ants or not, because as the name indicate, they have kind of pale yellow or white color foot. So the next species is called ghost ant. So it has this name because it is pale in color and almost see-through. For example, if you look at the photo, their abdomen and their legs is very pale in color. So sometimes people only see the head and thorax moving around without noticing the pale color abdomen. So we call it as ghost ant. It is also very tiny ant species. And the interesting characteristic is it will emit rotten coconut-like odor when disturbed or crushed. So if you found this ant at home, it is a good opportunity for you to try and smell it. Just crush it and smell it, and then you will know what it means by rotten coconut odor. So you can basically tell them apart from other ant species by seeing the translucent abdomen and legs. They may located and nest in the voids and in wall cavities, such as inside cabinets and in discarded clothing. And the next species here is called big-headed ant, Phaidole megacephala. So the name mega means big, and then cephala means head. So big-headed ants. They are easy to spot as the major worker has huge head. So the minor worker has not so huge head, but the major worker has a large head. So this ant is common throughout the island and a prime suspect in the extinction of many lowland beetle species. So it is also considered a small ant species, and the body color is brown to dark brown in color. They they have large population size, although individual ants are small, right? They have large population size and aggressive towards other species. They also have extensive tunnel that will make them dominate an entire area and often eliminate native ant species. They normally nest outdoors in soil, under paving stones, or under potted plants. And the next species that we are going to cover is Argentine ants. So this species is native to South America and it's believed to come from northern Argentina. That's why they have the name of Argentine ants. They are known to form supercolony. In Hawaii, they can be found at high elevation. So it is not everywhere, but mostly at high elevation. It is considered as a small species. The body is slender and the head is oval and subtriangular in shape. In urban environment, their nest area include bird nests in wall voids and in cracks and crevices in a slab. They prefer to nest close to moisture sources such as near the sink, near water pipes, near potted plants. The colony usually contain many queens. It is also a polygynous species. They don't have much aggression among own species. That's why they form supercolony. I believe, last species that I'm gonna cover that is common in Hawaii is called elongate twig ant. So these species, they nest mostly outdoor, and many gardeners and landscapers mention that they have been bitten by this species. So it is a large and slender species. You can see how long they are. The head and the abdomen are dark in color, while the antennae, the mouth part, and the thorax are dark orange in color. They also have large oval eye. So if you saw the ants with this color and large in size, and they are outside in the gardens or parks or in the backyard, they are mostly this elongate twig ant. The worker have painful sting, but they are not very aggressive, and it will sting, but generally only if being kind of disturbed or if they are trapped under the clothing. So I have covered the 12 common ant species in Hawaii. So I cover how we can identify them using the worker morphology, right? So I also want to point out that the workers, they are not able to digest solid food. So interestingly, how do they eat their food? They cannot digest their solid food. So the workers actually feed the food to the larvae to digest the solid food, and then the larvae regurgitate the food out and back to the worker, and then the worker will share the digested food to the entire colony. So this is how the ant feeding behavior in most of the ants work for most species. So the process repeat to the entire colony, the food sharing behavior, sharing to all the workers and including the queens. So sharing the food back to the queen is important, and the queen is the only reproductive caste in a colony. They are the egg-laying machine. So the process of food exchange in ants is called trophallaxis, which is really interesting. And trophallaxis also make control of ants through baiting possible. So the toxic baits that you can find on the market, they use this behavior, they make use of this behavior, and so that the toxicant can be spread to the queen, which is the sole reproductive caste in the colony. And when you choose the bait, you also need to know that food preference depends on ant species and the time of the year and the colony stage. For example, the colony with a lot of immature stages, they will require more protein food than carbohydrate-based food. So different colony have their own needs and preference, and it will change by time. So sometime before using a bait, we actually use the food, whether protein food or carbohydrate-based food, to let them choose so that we can pick a more suitable bait while controlling them. And worker may shift to different food types. For example, like humans, we don't like to eat the same food every day, right? So workers that do that foraging for food, they also don't like to eat the same food for a long time. So I've covered some of their behavior, the trophallaxis behavior, and communication through pheromone, etc., and interesting ant species in the world. So although they are fascinating creatures overall, many people have asked, so what do I do with the ants in my kitchen, right? What do I do with the ants in my backyard? So let's go over some prevention and control strategy for ants. Prevention is very important if you need to control ants, because sometimes the chemical spray can cause pesticide runoff is not a long-term solution. So prevention is better than cure. So we want to maintain good sanitation. We want to minimize potential nesting sites, and we want to eliminate water sources. For example, fix the leaking pipes and check for the leaking pipes, because most of them are attracted to moisture source. And next is ant control. Always try to control the ants when the infestation is small. Don't wait until the infestation is like larger and larger, then it will be more challenging. To start ant control, first you have to know that performing inspection and locating the nest is the most important first step in ant management. For example, if you locate the nest and then you know the entry point, if you know where the whole nest is located at, you just get rid of the whole nest, right? Or you vacuum the whole nest out of your home. And if you cannot locate the nest, then you can get some bedding products, depending on the species. So, for example, for one of the IPM steps, you look for places where ants gain entry into the structure, such as along the electrical wires outlet, around the door, window, plumbing, and along cracks and crevices. And if you can seal those cracks and crevices, that would help because they really like to nest in cracks and crevices. So locate the nest is important and it will help a lot as the first step. So always do inspection and monitor them. So there are some non-chemical treatment if you prefer. So it include mopping the worker ants with soapy water or vacuum them. But some of these are temporary solution only. Unless you can follow the ant trail, locate the nest, like I said, and then remove the nest when you found it, then those are the long-term non-chemical control. If you cannot do that, and then the use of insecticides will be helpful. But if you overuse it, it is not good. For example, the use of insecticide spray for ant control around home has led to the discovery of toxic chemicals in waterways at levels that are toxic to aquatic organisms. It is important to prevent insecticide runoff to the street and where it can flow to drains and to urban waterways. And other than this pesticide runoff issue, it is also not good for human health, animal health, and for some of the species, the spray is not effective. So I'm gonna cover a little bit about bedding. Bedding is alternative to spray insecticides, and beds come from different formulation and different types, as you can see in when you go to the market and get them from Home Depot, from Longstrap, from Walmart, etc. They come in many types, including gel, liquid, granular, paste. Different species prefer liquid bed formulation. And a lot of sugar feeding ant species, they prefer liquid bait because liquid bait is like their natural food sources in nature, that is honeydew. And remember that adults can only ingest liquid, they cannot eat solid food. So they need the immature stage to digest the solid food. So this has an impact on the effectiveness of various type of baits. So liquid bait is highly effective against sugar feeding ants. It is like their food in nature, honeydew, but liquid bait need to be contained and also dispensed with bait stations, which need a lot of maintenance. They are also kind of expensive, easily spill and spoil under the field condition. And many people also don't want to see these bait stations around their homes or garden. And sometimes the ants drown inside the liquid, and the other ants will not feed on the beds anymore. So that lead to my next topic of using new or smarter management strategy. So recently, a few years back, starting from a few years ago, my research involved development of hydrogel baits targeting ants. So mostly targeting sugar feeding ants. So this is to overcome the problems associated with traditional pesticide treatment. So we use the alginate hydrogel to deliver liquid baits to ants directly without using bait station. Because hydrogel is a super absorbent polymer that can hold sugar water until the ants show up and drink it. So it is an alternative to bait station. So ants can find them easily if we just distribute the hydrogel baits near their ant trail. And this species here is yellow crazy ant. It is from a recent research on hydrogel targeting yellow crazy ant. So they are also sugar feeding ants and they are very attracted to those sugar hydrogel. So I'm gonna demonstrate how I made it in the lab. So it is made from alginate that come from brown seaweed. And you can make hydrogel using the chemical reaction below. All you need is calcium chloride solution and sodium alginate solution. Mhm. Now I'm gonna show you a video. Calcium chloride solution is regular salt water at the bottom. And this is the sodium alginate solution made from seaweed. I added some food coloring so that you can see the formation of the beads. So this is one of the projects that I did during my postdoc period in Riverside, and I continue to improve the hydrogel formulation in Hawaii currently. I also want to clarify that the baits applying under the tree is just a demonstration, and in the real situation, we will have to apply them close to the ants foraging trail. So that video is demonstration of how to apply it. You can spread it on the soil, and because they are biodegradable, they will dissipate into the soil in a few weeks or months. And the hydrogels is not on the market yet, so but hopefully in the future we are talking to the chemical manufacturing company who is interested to collaborate on that. So anyway, for baiting, we first have to identify the ant species. There are so many species. For example, in Hawaii, there are over 60 species of ants. Some prefer sugar, some prefer oily food or protein food. We need to understand their nutritional preferences or bait preferences. There are also different bait formulation, as I mentioned, right? For sugar-feeding ants, they like liquid, but for other ants, they prefer maybe paste or solid bait. So monitoring and identification also let us identify the nesting habits and locations. For example, you need to know their nesting sites, and then you will also know where to put the baits that can maximize the efficacy of the baits. We also look at conductive conditions to figure out why they are here at the first place. So ants are very common. I believe everyone's home has ants at some point. So the one of the important characteristic of baits that I want to let you know is it has to be non-repellent and slow acting. So don't expect the bait to act very quickly. If it is too quickly, it is not effective. We want it to be slow acting so that the worker ants will not die too quickly. We want the workers to bring the toxicant back to the colony and then share it to the immature stages as well as their queen, which is the only reproductive caste, because all of the workers that you can see outside, they are sterile. They cannot reproduce. they are the foraging ants that you see outside or in your home is only the 10% of the total population. And it is important to make sure that the toxicant can be distributed throughout the colony before the foragers start to die. So we need some patience. If you put up bait, it won't work immediately. It is also important to know the nesting habit of the species because you can, so that you can do proper treatment. For example, there are some species that nest outdoor, like fire ant, big-headed ant, crazy ant, where you can usually see them in the park. And there are some species that nest indoor, like pharaoh ant. There are also some species that nest both indoor and outdoor. So for outdoor ant, you want to prevent them from getting into the home, right? And for indoor ant, you want to get rid of them by using baiting. And I also want to mention that you need to be strategic when you place the bait. We want to increase the bait placement and we want to increase the bait palatability by the baits that they like and they will continue to feed on it, not abandon the bait after one day. We also want to bait at entrail so that they can discover the bait quicker. So when you buy the ant baits available on the market, remember to always read and follow the label on the products. And usually it will say this bait is for which species, and they have a list of the species that you can use for that particular product. And again, you can report questionable species to these agencies, and ants will need to be collected for identification. So you can report to HDOA, you can report to HISC, like Hawaii Invasive Species Committee, or Invasive Species Committees of Kauai, Maui, Big Island, and so on. And over here, there's a phone and a website for you to report invasive species like questionable ant species. And lastly, feel free to check out my lab website to see our current research, publication, and information. And I also want to state that the biodegradable hydrogel is not available on the market yet. We are still working on that. And lastly, ants are so much more than just pests, right? They are social creature that has interesting biology, and our lab is interested to work on to research on their biology, ecology, behavior, and we also work on effective way or improved way to control them. So that is what we do overall. And keep an eye out of those ants. And thank you for listening. I would take any questions.